You didn't sell College Fresh. She's like, you bought Upper Crust. It was like a culmination of everything that myself, Annie and Tom, my family, and all the people that worked with it. It was extremely rewarding. I wanted to beat you. Like I didn't want Upper Crust coming in on any of our campuses or any of our partnerships.
It was fierce competition between Upper Crust and College Fresh in the Greek food service market. But I always thought to myself, man, if we could be partnered together, everybody loves Jack Dawson. You're listening to Seasoned Leaders, a podcast about leadership, growth, and the power of hospitality. I'm Adam Guy, and today Jack Dawson and I will pick up where we left off, the moment that competition shifted towards collaboration, and how Upper Crust and College Fresh came together in a partnership that reshaped both of our companies. It was fierce competition between Upper Crust and College Fresh in the Greek food service market. The biggest learning that I've had in working with you now, Jack, is just refocusing on the thing that matters, right? Which is taking care of your partners. But I always thought to myself, man, if we could be partnered together, the fact that all these groups want College Fresh and Upper Crust to be at the table to do this bid, like that could be really special. We both had an opportunity to kind of tell our stories from the early days. And I think that I'd really like to transition the conversation now to this time period that we were competitors. Right. Because looking back now, we can smile about it. But during the time, like it was fierce competition between Upper Crust and College Fresh in the Greek food service market. So let's take it back once again to the beginning of being competitors. So we're both in the industry, we're both building our businesses, we're both going, like, what were your kind of first impressions, first encounters with Upper Crust?
So what I'll say next, I'll be curious to know if you feel the same, because I don't think we've ever talked about this. When we first started, College Chefs, who's another part of the Upper Crust family, was the one that was high on our radar. The owner at the time had previously worked for my parents at Hendrick House, and a lot of we had the offices in the same area, same town, Champaign-Urbana. So we're operating in a lot of similar places. So that was the first one on my radar, and that was the one that was like, I hate to say personal, but that was the one like I really wanted to go get. Right. I think we first ran into Upper Crust at Michigan. It was the first time I'd heard the name, and then we started seeing you guys more and more. So at that point, I hadn't even met you yet, right? Because for the first 4 or 5 years of College Fresh, I feel like maybe it was only 3 years. I wasn't going to industry events. I didn't know all the players in the industry. I didn't know the leaders. I didn't know this organization or that organization all that well yet. We were just focusing on doing food. And so I started seeing you guys out there. So knowing that you guys were thinking the same way, I realized the other side of it, right? Connecting with people in the industry. We had always worked hard. I feel like all of us have in this industry worked hard to keep it friendly, keep it professional. I think you and I may have shaken that up a little bit, but that's always been our goal, right? Is to, we don't think it's good for Greek life. We don't, if we're all combative, if we're all nasty, we want there to be good options for people, right? And always saw that as such. I'll never forget, I think this one was NIC when you and I met, and it was like a year or two. I knew the transition was coming between my parents and my sister and my brother and I. And you had asked about maybe buying the company. I remember saying, don't you dare even try, because I want to wait. I want to get my chance at this, right? I want to be an owner and I want to run this. And you probably thought I was a jerk at the time.
No, I just remember running into a pretty big brick wall with that conversation at that time.
I probably put the hard shutdown on that.
Yeah.
I respected that you wanted to do that. You go to these conferences and you talk to people in the industry, and they are saying, well, it's natural this is going to happen. It's natural this is going to happen, which I'll maybe put a pin in that for later, that there's going to be consolidation, right? There's going to be groups that start to partner together. I said, no. I want to do this. I want to run College Fresh. My sister, brother, and I want to run this the way we know how. So thank you for being patient with us in that regard. I remember thinking you were smart. And I think at the time I probably tried to sell it in my head as like, yeah, he's really smart, but he doesn't care like I do, which is just a stupid thing to say. It's something maybe you tell yourself to sleep at night, because I knew you guys were smart and in growing. I probably also had a few moments where I thought he can really be a jerk. There was one conference, I think, where we had some tension. I can't even remember what it would have been over, but it was, I think the way to describe it really with all of our competitors was it was a respectful, animosity is the wrong word. It was a respectful tension, right? Because I wanted to beat you. Like I didn't want Upper Crust coming in on any of our campuses or any of our partnerships. And okay, here's another good story, and then I'll hush up. Our partnership, our first really big partnership with an organization, was because of Upper Crust and you and Shanna going in and doing a much better job marketing and communicating than College Fresh ever did, and saying, "Hey, here's all the things we can do for you as an organization." And they called me and said, "Well, hey Jack, Upper Crust came in and made a pretty good presentation. Would you be willing to do any of these things?" And they sent me an email. And I looked at it. I'm like, "Well, we already do all of those things. I have just done a terrible job of making sure people know that, right?" And so that was a bell ringer for me too. And I look back at kind of how we came together.
Yeah, I think my experience is similar with College Fresh in the sense that we were both in this industry. We both kind of were growing at a steady pace,
Yep.
right? And so at the beginning, I don't feel like we ran into each other all too often. It was kind of hit or miss here or there. But what's interesting is you go from day one to the years leading up to us partnering together. It was like Upper Crust and College Fresh were the two that were always at the table, right? When someone was doing an RFP or a bid, and all of a sudden it was like, man, we are competing against Jack on every. I mean, I would say we went from competing against College Fresh on 20% of our bids to 90%,
Yep.
right? And so I think what part of that made me really excited about the possibility of ever working together, even though you had shut me down completely. And so I didn't have a lot of hope for it. But I always thought to myself, man, if we could be partnered together, the fact that all these groups want College Fresh and Upper Crust to be at the table to do this bid, like that could be really special. What did you see, if anything, that Upper Crust was doing that maybe you thought, wow, they're doing that really well during that time of competition? Because I've got a list of things that I think that College Fresh did really well.
I thought the first one that comes to mind, I don't know, the selling part, right? I thought you and Shanna always represented yourselves very well, very professional in those settings. And maybe from the marketing and presentation standpoint, always did it much better than I did. Whereas I was kind of more, again, I won't use the words, I was a little less focused or strategic about that stuff. So I knew there was a strategy behind Upper Crust. There were processes, there was a business acumen on the Upper Crust side. And I had also, my dad has told this story to me since I was a kid, talking about, because we were, and then it got brought back up a lot here over the last few years, going from generation 1 to generation 2 to generation 3 to generation 4. And these family businesses, it gets harder and harder with everything that you do, right? So that was all kind of there in my head as if we're looking at it as a visual, right, of coming up to this thing where we actually had this partnership. But a lot of things, but those are the ones that stood out to me from Upper Crust side. The growth, the scalability, right? The practices behind growing it. Whereas I feel like sometimes College Fresh was, we'd go do it, but then there was a lot of pains on the back end because we didn't have a lot of those systems and processes in place. We were just learning as we went.
I think that my impression of College Fresh and the thing that I thought that you guys always did so well was you had such a great customer service mindset, right? And the way that you valued the partner above all was something that I always admired, and something that I really tried to instill in my team as like, look, our competitors are doing this and we've got to make sure that this is our mentality as well. And so that was something. You personally, you frustrated the heck out of me because
anything in particular you'd like to go into detail on?
You are so good with people and it makes me so mad. I feel like I come across a lot of times as like this guy's like, I'm this professional corporate guy. And I think that my friends and the people that get to know me and get to be around me, I think have a different view of that probably, or you could probably.
I thought that way about you for sure.
Yeah. So you could test about that. But it's like, Jack, everybody loves Jack Dawson.
At least for I might be the opposite. They love me for 15 minutes or an hour, and the more they get to know me, they're like, yeah, whatever.
I don't think that's the case, but I remember being at these conferences, and I would leave feeling like I had a great conversation with a potential partner, and then I would turn around 15 minutes later, and Jack is up there buying them Taco Bell or doing something and having this amazing conversation with them, and sitting here going, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible with relationships and just being a really genuine dude. And so as much as the things that frustrated me about you are the things that excite me about the fact that we're partners today and kind of drew me to you. But I think that was something that I certainly secretly admired. I would have never given you credit for it as a competitor and at the time. But I think it's kind of interesting to be able to reflect back on those things, because I think so many of the things that we think about our competitors and so many of the things that we think about are sometimes just made up in our heads, and we sort of create a narrative about them, like you said, to kind of make ourselves feel better or to justify results or whatever the case may be. I think in any business, it's like if we just get to know the person, pretty amazing what
You
lies
know,
beneath the surface.
I swear this is unplanned, but that kind of makes a good segue into our conversations,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And how this,
sort of that turning point. And I almost liken our relationship to if someone's had like a dating relationship, right? And so I basically came in and asked College Fresh out, and you said, heck no,
I
right?
did,
Like
yeah,
I'm not interested in
yeah,
in going on a date with you. But we actually didn't keep in touch a ton
no,
over the period of the competitiveness. I think it kind of turned for me like, okay, they don't want to partner with us, then let's just try to beat them,
yeah,
right?
me too.
And I think for you too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so we went through a years long period. Let's just know that we are two of the best companies in this industry doing this, and we're just going to butt heads and we're going to compete and we're going to try to be the best and take each other out. And then after we did the first two acquisitions of college chefs and campus cooks, did that sort of change your thought process at all? Were you still
that fired me up
still
even more,
anti?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I was the one out saying, I'll never do this, right? Come with us because we care. We're not going to do that, right? I mean, yeah, so no, I think if anything, it kind of amplified it. At the same time, I don't know if I'm just being honest, right? At the same time, there's talks about it, right? And I think I see the way things are going in the industry, right? And I see what's needed, what our partners are going to want and see. And I see another organization that, not to say that you guys didn't do great service before I came on, but I see organizations with maybe some opposite strengths that could make a good partnership. And while this is all happening too, my family is going through family business growing pains, right? Like all natural. And as we found out while we were working really hard together, and can't say enough about Annie and Tom and our willingness to all work together. We were very fortunate to come into the business together, buy the business, and sell the business. So again, we feel very fortunate about that. But we successfully transitioned from generation one to generation two. My brother has two sons that were coming into professional age. My sister's got a daughter. My kids are much younger than theirs, but that was going to happen at some point. So we're working on how to manage a business properly as a family. All the wearing the 7 different hats as an owner, as a board member, as a president, as an employee, as a brother, as a sister. There's so many different ways, and it gets very complicated, right? And we were working through all that, feeling really good about the direction of College Fresh, but we were actually in a family business consulting meeting when you had called. And I think my first response was just don't even bother. But talk to Annie and Tom about it. And we, again, our attitude, same with taking on partnerships, is like, who are we to just blow it off? So there was also well, if you want to just, make us an offer, then sure, who are we to refuse? But what I think I respected about the process from you is that you didn't just say, you didn't come back and just make an offer. That was the 5th step, right? The process was, hey, do you think that first off, and you mentioned it earlier, something that is needed. Is this something that's needed? Is this something that can work? Is this something that our partners are going to want to see? And we approached it from that angle. And I think as that happened, it kind of turned the dial just a little bit. Is that how you're remembering that?
Yeah, I think that we did a good job there of having it be not transactional and
Yeah.
more relational,
Yeah.
right? And I think there was a lot of thought process putting behind those beginning conversations for me were all about if we were to partner together, would this be good for our partners? Would this be good for the industry?
Yeah.
Do we feel like that our strengths would come together in a way that would make this company really great?
Yeah.
Do we feel like strengths at College Fresh would balance weaknesses at Upper Crust and vice
Yeah.
versa? And you're right. We didn't talk dollars and cents and any of that kind of stuff
You know what
for
did it for
a
me
long
when I was
time.
comfortable to go there was Annie and Tom. They're both experts in their field. Tom in technology, Annie in human resources. So they have, and I think we're okay exploring other avenues. This is all I've ever done, right? I have not been a professional out of college where I wasn't operating in Greek food service, right? I don't want to do anything else. This is what I know. I care about it. I care about the people I've built these partnerships with. So I wasn't ready to go anywhere. And I kind of imagine, I think when these conversations started, that was the intent, that because the owner from College Chefs had passed away, Bill Reeder was ready to step away from Campus Cooks. I imagined that was the direction. And I think I said something along those lines, but this is not an unreasonable conversation. I said, but I'm not interested in not going anywhere and not doing this the way I know how. And at that point you were like, oh, I thought that was obvious. Like we want you to come on board. That's the only way that this works actually, is if you come on board to do this. And that again was another, I think maybe before we dialed the notch from 0 to 1 or 2, I think that kind of ramped it up to level 5, maybe. Let's say that was when I maybe first started to take this seriously.
Yeah, that was it sort of that idea that you knew we had already kind of convinced each other or found out that bringing the two companies together would be a positive. And then it turned to, wait a second, I can actually be a part of this
Yep.
and help grow this and stick with this thing that
Yeah,
I've built. And so that sounds like that kind of helped to get you over that initial hump.
absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I knew or registered all the complications that come in bringing two great businesses together with great partnerships and great teams out in the field. And I'm just thankful for that opportunity now. But yeah, I don't think I had quite weighed it all, but yeah, absolutely.
So I've always been on the side of acquiring,
Yep.
right, with the exception of the wristband company that I told the story about earlier. But in this niche market, the companies that I've run have acquired these other companies, and so my process through that I think is a little bit different than someone who is potentially rolling their business into and selling their business. And so in this particular transaction, take me through the emotions that you go through,
Yeah.
because my guess is it's a bit of a roller coaster. You may have said, well, I've gotten myself to a point where I can consider this. And then maybe 2 days later, are you back to being like, I should pick up the phone and just tell him to buzz off?
Oh yeah. And actually one of our senior regional directors, Tony, actually put this in a way that even I hadn't thought of. He said, "You didn't sell College Fresh." He said, "Your brother and your sister did, and congratulations to them. They sold College Fresh." He's like, "You bought Upper Crust," is the way he said it. So like that was something really cool and kind of profound to me. So I like thinking of it. That's what I keep telling myself. And isn't that a
Great.
cool way to say that?
I love that. Yeah. Well, just that roller coaster that you go on. The
Oh my
yes, I want
gosh.
to do this. No, I
It's a
don't.
comp- it's the first when you're an owner of a company, you don't have a lot of people saying, "Great job," patting you on the back. Here's your reward. So in a weird way, there's a psychological thing. This is actually a valuation of the hard work that I've put in, the sacrifices me and my wife have made. This is not a 9 to 5 job, right? We're working all the time. And so it was in a weird way, it was like a culmination of everything that myself, Annie and Tom, my family, and all the people that worked with us too. I want to be careful not to sound like great job, Jack, but all the work that we put into this, it was extremely rewarding. But then there were absolutely times during that process where it was hard and like, can I actually sell this? I had built up so much of my identity around being the person who grew College Fresh and as an owner of College Fresh and as the president of College Fresh. That was a struggle and probably something honestly I'm still working on too, is that that's not it anymore, that now I'm the president and working with you at Upper Crust. Did you ever have any doubts as we were going through this process that
I think from my end,
when I was being stubborn about the
yeah. I think on our end, deals can fall apart at any point,
yeah.
right? And so I think that where fear comes in is once you start sharing that intimate information,
Yeah.
knowing that
It
the
was hard
deal
for us.
has not closed yet.
Yeah.
So to know that we have to understand your business,
Yep.
and you have to understand our business, because to Tony's point, you were buying into our business. You
Yep.
were rolling over equity. So your brother and sister, they exited, but you stayed in, and you're now an owner of Upper Crust Food Service.
Yep.
And so because of that, you had to feel comfortable with Upper Crust Food Service.
Yep.
So for the first time, I had to share things that I wasn't used to sharing.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So you didn't have to ever do that on your
Never before, because everyone else was going away.
Yeah.
Right. Because they were retiring or,
Sure.
whatever the case may be. So for the first time, I had to share things before the ink was dry, meaning that Jack Dawson has all this information now about Upper Crust Food Service, what my vision is for it, what our financials look like, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot of fear around that from my perspective. And so just that anxiety of this deal actually going to close, or are we going to end up at the ninth hour and all of a sudden something's going to fall through? And now we're in this really awkward position where we both know so much about each other's businesses, and we're going to be back out maybe where that divide potentially is bigger than it's ever been between us as competitors.
That just made me think of another thing too, about the fact that when we're going through this, you can't say anything to anybody, right? And that's hard. I wish I could have told all of our people that, hey, we're thinking about this, or all of our partners. You probably wish you could have done the same thing, but just the nature of how that happens. So I get that. I understand that too. But yeah, there were a lot of times, I don't think once we thought this would be good, that we could make this work, and once I knew I could buy in, wanted to do it. But shout out to all the supporters and advisor teams we have. But you get lawyers involved, and there's this and there's that and there's this. Yeah, there are times where it's like, okay, screw it,
Yeah.
But I'm just glad that you were there because I remember times calling you and be like, dude, and you were always just, it's got to be rough. you kind of guided me through that. So I appreciate that.
Well, I think what I love about doing deals is that at the end of the day, there's all these resources that are there to help us. The attorneys,
Yep.
the accountants, right? The business advisors, all of those types of people are all there to give us their opinion, to guide the process, to make sure that things go well. But at the end of the day, when it's time for people to put their pens down and just get the deal done, every single deal I've ever done, it comes down to the two business owners getting together and saying, guys, we want this to get done. Yep. You need to get it done for us. And for us to be able to kind of come together and say, hey, we're going to get this deal done. Yep. And not let the deal get lost over an attorney who wants to dig their heel in on a certain, yep. Piece of the document on page 587. I think that we were able to see the forest through the trees through this process. And I was really thankful that you kind of were able to do that as well, because it's so easy to kind of get off track there. Yeah. Transitioning kind of here to the end of our second episode here, and maybe a few reflections or learnings that we've had since we've joined forces.
Yeah.
So we've gone from competitors and now we're business partners, and I would like to say we're friends.
Absolutely.
What are some of the early learnings since the ink was dry on the paper that you've had that have maybe shaped a little bit of your leadership or your thought process?
Sure.
Has your opinion changed at all of maybe some of the things that you thought about Upper Crust before?
100%. At College Fresh, it was nice because I had Annie, who I think was like you in a lot of ways, that would focus on the employees. I don't mean this to sound derogatory, but I think I had this kind of old school approach to leadership sometimes, which is, well, to me, this is clearly the way that we're going to do it. And I don't really care. Thank you for your opinions, but this is the way we're going to do it because this is what our partners need. And this is how we're going to grow this business. Right. And I know just in having conversations that sometimes that rubbed our team the wrong way. And what I've seen from you a lot is empowering the people to do it. And that's something that I'm continuing to watch and learn from. So that's been really good for me. I think the support for the teams in the field, what I hope we can do is merge that. Right. And I mean, this doesn't work if we don't. Right. We have to bring the strengths from each. So that's the one thing that really stands out to me from Upper Crust. So, yeah, I'd go right back at you. I mean, anything from the College Fresh side?
Yeah, I think the biggest, the learning that I've had from you and
this is your biggest, right?
Yeah, this is our biggest acquisition for sure. But the biggest learning that I've had in working with you now, Jack, is just refocusing on the thing that matters, right? Which is taking care of your partners.
We've talked about this 100 times, right?
We have. And I think it's so easy for me as an entrepreneur to get caught up in creating a system. Yep. Right. Creating something that
Thank
we
you
can
for those,
scale.
by the way.
Right. Yeah. We need them. Right. They're important.
Yeah.
But for me, that's where my mind goes, is how can we create a system? How can we do this? How can we scale this? And all those things ultimately lead to customer satisfaction, I think, when they're executed well. Because we all know the companies that have grown and had major pain points, right? Because they didn't put the systems in place. But just seeing your relentless pursuit of customer satisfaction has really been refreshing for me to be able to just reiterate to myself that is the reason that we're doing the systems.
Yeah, right? Dad always said that, right? And maybe that's why we were a little light on some of those, because at the end of the day, I never really cared about some of the stuff that I know needs to be cared about. And maybe that's another just a thing that all of this stuff is, we want to grow this business. We want to support our Greek partners. We want those students to have awesome services. We want to be consistent everywhere we go. I cannot do what I want to do in terms of keeping our partners happy as we grow if we don't have those.
Right.
Right. At the same time, none of those matter if we're not bringing this culture of wanting to do well for our partners. And what I've seen in these systems with Upper Crust is we're building systems that allow for flexibility in response, right? And I always said, as we grew, I never wanted to be Sodexo, Aramark, the big conglomerates, whatever. They can do things really great too, but I like what we're building here and building these systems that still allow for human nature and people to be our team to be able to respond and be flexible. That was a big fear of mine, and now that's gone. So,
well, I'm really glad that you're on our team, and glad that we have gone from this journey of being competitors to being partners to now having an ability to build this business together.
Today, you heard how competition became collaboration. In the next episode of Seasoned Leaders, we'll take you inside life after the acquisition, what it's like leading together, integrating teams, and building one unified company. Until next time, thanks for listening, and stay seasoned.